He thought majority ownership meant monarchy. He thought yelling meant control. He thought threatening exile would make me obedient. What he didn't expect was that I'd take my share of the lake house and hand it to a developer. And suddenly, the man who said I was dead to him was the one begging. The lake house was the one place in my childhood that felt like a pause button. No school, no schedules, just sunburned shoulders, cheap hot dogs on the grill, and my grandpa's voice calling from the dock, telling me not to run with a fishing hook in my hand like I had a death wish. So when my uncle told me, in a family group call with 12 people listening, that I needed to sign over my share or be dead to them, it didn't feel like a property dispute. It felt like someone reaching into my memories and trying to charge me rent. My phone buzzed at 7:01 p.m. family call lake house. My uncle's name was the host. I already knew what it was. I'd been dodging his texts for a week. He'd sent the same message 3 different ways, like persistence made it more reasonable. We need to settle ownership. We're not carrying you. Sign the paperwork. I joined anyway because some part of me still believed family would behave like family if the situation was serious enough. That was my mistake. The screen filled with faces. My aunt, 2 cousins, my dad, my mom, even my grandmother looking confused like someone had told her this was about updates. My uncle didn't waste time. He didn't even say hello. "All right," he said, leaning toward the camera like he was a judge about to announce a sentence. "We're doing this tonight." I kept my voice neutral. "Doing what?" He smiled like I'd walked into his trap on purpose. "You signing your share over to me," he said, "so we can move forward as a family." Move forward. That phrase is always used right before someone tries to run you over. "I'm not signing anything tonight," I said. My uncle's smile vanished. "You're not in a position to negotiate," he snapped. I glanced at my dad's face on the call. He wasn't looking at the screen. He was staring down at his hands, the way he does when he wants to disappear inside his own skin. My aunt cleared her throat. "Let's all stay calm," she said, voice syrupy. "This doesn't need to be hostile." It was already hostile. They just wanted me to be polite while I got robbed. My uncle pointed his finger at the camera like it could reach through the screen. "You've never paid for a damn thing," he said. "Not the roof, not the dock, not the taxes. And you still want a piece? That's not how family works." I took a slow breath. "That's funny," I said, "because the only time anyone asks me about the lake house is when you want something signed." My cousin Derek smirked. "Oh my God, here we go," he muttered. Another cousin, Jenna, looked uncomfortable. She kept glancing off screen like someone was sitting next to her telling her what to do. My uncle raised his voice. "Your grandfather split this place up like an idiot," he said. "He created a mess. I'm cleaning it up." That line hit deep, because my grandpa wasn't an idiot. He was careful, he was stubborn, and he knew exactly who my uncle was. Grandpa had told me once, quietly, when we were fixing a broken step on the porch, "People show you who they are when there's property involved." At the time, I laughed. I thought he meant distant relatives who'd show up once a decade. He meant my uncle. "Grandpa did what he wanted," I said. "It's his will." My uncle leaned back, eyes narrowed. "And I'm telling you what happens if you keep being difficult," he said. "Either you sign or you're dead to us." The call went silent. Even the kids in the background stopped making noise. My dad's head snapped up. "Mark," he said, "don't say that." My uncle didn't even look at him. "You want to coddle him, fine," he said, "but I'm done. He wants to be selfish. He can do it without this family." Selfish. That word again and again used like a branding iron. I looked at the grid of faces. No one defended me. No one said, "That's extreme." No one said, "He has rights." My aunt sighed dramatically. "You don't understand what this does to everyone," she said. "It stresses your grandmother. It divides the cousins. It ruins traditions." Traditions. My uncle had turned that house into a private club years ago. He controlled the key. He controlled who got weekends. He controlled who could bring friends. He controlled who could park where, as if lakefront gravel was sacred ground. He even started renting it out to cover costs, and somehow the cost coverage always ended up covering his new boat. I kept my voice measured. "If you want to buy me out, make an offer. A real one. On paper." My uncle laughed, a short, sharp sound with no humor in it. "You're not worth what you think you are," he said. "This isn't some open market. This is family." family. He kept saying it like a spell. But what he meant was my control. My aunt leaned toward her camera. "Just sign it over," she said softly. "You don't even go there anymore." I stared at her. I didn't go because every visit felt like walking into someone else's territory and pretending it was mine too. Because my uncle would comment on everything, like he was auditing my presence. "Did you bring your own food? Don't use the good towels. Make sure you lock the shed. The tools are expensive. Don't touch the boat." And if I asked about repairs or costs, he'd get defensive and loud. I stopped going because it stopped feeling like my grandpa's place and started feeling like my uncle's throne. "That doesn't mean I don't own it," I said. My cousin Derek rolled his eyes. "You're gonna ruin this for everyone," he said. "You know that, right?" I looked at him. "Tell your dad to stop threatening people," I replied. My uncle slammed his hand on his desk hard enough to shake his camera. "Enough," he snapped. "You have until Friday. I'm sending the quit claim. You sign it or you're out of this family permanently." Quit claim. The word made my stomach tighten. That wasn't a buyout. That was theft with paperwork. My dad finally spoke, voice weak. "Maybe we can talk about this in person." My uncle shot him a look like my dad was a dog that had barked out of turn. "There is nothing to talk about," he said. "It's done. He signs or he's dead to us." I felt something in me go cold. Not fear, not sadness, a clean, sharp line forming. "Okay," I said. My uncle blinked. "What?" "If that's your ultimatum," I said calmly, "then okay." He leaned forward, hungry. "So you'll sign?" I smiled slightly. "No," I said. "I mean, okay, dead to you. Got it." The silence that followed wasn't stunned. It was offended, like I'd broken an unspoken rule by not begging. My uncle's face twisted. "You think you're tough?" he hissed. "I think you're loud," I replied. "There's a difference." My aunt started talking quickly, trying to pull it back. "Let's not say things we'll regret." I cut her off. "Too late," I said. Then I left the call. I sat on my couch staring at my dark phone screen, heart thudding. In the quiet, my grandpa's voice came back to me again, like he was sitting in the room. "People show you who they are when there's property involved." They'd shown me. Now I had a choice. I could fold to keep a family that was already willing to bury me alive, or I could do something my uncle didn't expect. I opened my laptop and searched for one phrase: real estate attorney partition sale, lake house co-ownership. Because if my family wanted to make me dead to them, I was going to make my share impossible to ignore. The attorney's office smelled like coffee and quiet competence. That alone made me feel steadier. Her name was Laura. Mid-40, Essie, calm eyes. The kind of person who has seen siblings try to sue each other over garden fences and doesn't flinch. I laid everything out: the will, the ownership percentages, the repair invoices my uncle had been sending for the last 3 years, the texts, the ultimatum from the call. Laura skimmed the paperwork, occasionally underlining something with a pen. "First," she said without looking up, "you're not obligated to sign anything." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "Second, if they want you out, they can buy you out at fair market value." "And if they don't?" I asked. She finally looked at me. "Then you can force a partition sale." The word hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Partition. I'd Googled it, but hearing it from someone who knew what they were talking about made it real. "Meaning?" I asked. "Meaning the property can be sold and proceeds divided according to ownership shares," she said calmly. "If co-owners can't agree." My uncle had always acted like he controlled everything because he held the majority share. Turns out majority doesn't mean monarchy. "What if I don't want to force a full sale?" I asked. "What if I just want out?" Laura leaned back. "You can sell your share." "To who?" I said. "Nobody wants a fraction of a lake house with my uncle attached." She gave me a small smile. "You'd be surprised." That was the first time the idea stopped feeling theoretical. It became leverage. I left her office with something my uncle hadn't expected me to get: options. That night, I emailed my uncle. Simple, professional. "Please provide full accounting of lake house expenses, rental income, tax payments, and maintenance costs for the past 5 years. If you wish to purchase my share, submit a formal written offer based on fair market valuation." No insults, no emotion, just paper. He responded within an hour, not with documents, with rage. Are you serious? You think this is a game? You're going to lawyer up against your own family? I stared at the screen. He didn't deny anything. He didn't provide numbers. He attacked. That told me more than spreadsheets would have. The next morning, my aunt called me. Not in a group, privately. Her voice was softer than usual. Why are you escalating this? She asked. Escalating? I said. He threatened to cut me off. That was emotional, she said quickly. You know how he is. Yes, I did. That doesn't mean it's acceptable, I replied. She exhaled. Look, the house needs work. It's expensive. We've been carrying it. With rental income? I asked. Silence. Then sharper. That's none of your business. It literally is, I said. I own part of it. She changed tactics immediately. You don't even go there, she repeated. It's sentimental to the rest of us. That line almost made me laugh. Sentimental. My uncle had replaced Grandpa's old wooden dock with some flashy composite monstrosity and named the boat after himself. Sentimental didn't seem like the word. What's sentimental is Grandpa's name on that deed, I said. Her voice hardened. You're going to destroy this family over money. I felt something inside me snap into clarity. No, I said, I'm refusing to let money destroy me. She hung up. 3 days later, the smear campaign began. My cousin Derek posted a vague Facebook status about family members who only show up when it benefits them. My name wasn't mentioned. It didn't need to be. A family friend texted me. Heard there's drama about the lake house. Hope you're not being difficult. Difficult? I hadn't even asked for more than documentation. That's when I realized this wasn't about paperwork. It was about control of the narrative. My uncle needed me to be the villain. Because if I wasn't selfish, then he was predatory, and that couldn't be allowed. A week passed. No accounting, no formal offer, just pressure, group texts, subtle comments. My dad called me one night. His voice sounded tired. Your uncle's upset, he said. That's not new, I replied. He says you're threatening to force a sale. I asked for numbers, I said. He refused. My dad hesitated. He's saying if you go that route, nobody will speak to you again. I leaned back in my chair. He already said I'd be dead to them, I said quietly. My dad didn't respond, and in that silence, I heard something I'd ignored for years. Fear, not mine, his. My dad had been living in my uncle's shadow since they were kids. My uncle louder, bigger personality, always right, always first to talk, and my dad learned to survive by yielding. I wasn't built that way. Dad, I said carefully, did Grandpa ever say anything to you about the house? Long pause, then almost reluctantly, he didn't trust Mark with full control. I closed my eyes. There it was. He thought if ownership was split, everyone would have a voice, my dad continued. He said it would keep things honest. Honest, that was the word, and that was exactly what my uncle didn't want. 2 days later, Laura called me. I ran some numbers, she said. Based on comparable lakefront properties and current market value, your share is worth significantly more than what they'd likely offer. How much more? I asked. She told me. I went silent, because my uncle had been hinting at buying me out for a number that was almost insulting in comparison. He hadn't just been trying to pressure me, he'd been trying to steal. Here's something else, Laura said. There's a local developer quietly assembling parcels around that lake. If they're interested in your share, that changes leverage entirely. The word developer made my stomach twist. The lake house wasn't just property. It was my childhood. It was Grandpa's old tackle box still sitting in the shed. But then I pictured my uncle's face on that call. Sign or you're dead to us. He'd already burned the sentimental bridge. I didn't reply to Laura immediately. I drove out to the lake that weekend alone. No warning, no announcement. I used my key. It still worked. For now. The place looked the same from a distance. Water still rippled against the dock. The porch still creaked, but up close it felt different, like it had been rebranded. My uncle's boat sat tied up front and center. His name was painted in bold letters on the side. The old wooden swing Grandpa built was gone, replaced with some modern patio set. I walked down to the dock and sat where Grandpa used to sit, and I realized something uncomfortable. I wasn't fighting for this place anymore. I was fighting against being erased from it. If I signed, my uncle would own it outright. My name gone. My grandfather's attempt at fairness erased, my uncle's version of history solidified, but if I held my ground, it wouldn't stay the same anyway. The family had already changed. The lake was just the stage. I took out my phone and called Laura. "Talk to the developer," I said. There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure?" she asked. "No," I said honestly. Then I looked at the water one last time. "But I'm done being bullied, because if my uncle wanted to treat ownership like war..." I was about to introduce him to strategy. The developer didn't look like a villain. That was the first thing that unsettled me. No slick suit, no cigar, no evil grin about leveling memories. He looked like a regular guy in his 50s who understood zoning laws better than most people understand their own relatives. We met in Laura's office. He slid a folder across the table. "I'm assembling adjacent properties," he said. "Nothing aggressive. I make offers. If people decline, I move on." He looked at me directly. "I'm not here to bulldoze history. I'm here to make a business decision." Laura had already briefed him. Minority owner, family dispute, emotional leverage in play. He didn't care about the drama. He cared about square footage and shoreline. "The offer reflects fair market value for your percentage," he said. The number was higher than what Laura had estimated. Not obscene, but solid. Enough to change my life in practical ways. Enough to make my uncle's family price look like a bad joke. "Understand something," the developer added. "If I acquire your share, I can pursue partition if negotiations fail. I prefer buyouts. Litigation is expensive, but I won't be cornered." Cornered. That word sat heavy in my chest, because that's exactly how my uncle had tried to make me feel. Cornered into signing for $1. Cornered into silence. Cornered into obedience. I didn't sign that day, but I told Laura to draft intent paperwork, and then, because I wasn't hiding anymore, I emailed my uncle. Formal, direct. "I've received a third-party offer for my share at fair market value. If you wish to match it, provide written confirmation within 7 days. Otherwise, I will proceed." He called within 2 minutes. I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. "What the hell did you just send me?" he barked. "I sent you a fair opportunity," I replied calmly. "You're selling to outsiders?" he shouted. "Over my dead body." I leaned back in my chair. "You already told me I was dead to you," I said. He went quiet for half a second. Then the explosion came. "You ungrateful piece of..." I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear and let him burn through his vocabulary. When he finally paused for air, I said one sentence. "Match the offer." "You think I'm paying that?" he snapped. "That's insane." "It's market value," I said. "You want control? Pay for it." Silence. Then the venom. "You're going to destroy this house," he said. "Your grandfather would be ashamed." That one landed. He knew it would. I closed my eyes for a second. "Grandpa didn't threaten people to get what he wanted," I said quietly. My uncle's tone shifted. Lower, colder. "If you go through with this," he said, "you will never step foot in this family again." I didn't hesitate. "Then I'll wear better shoes," I replied. And I hung up. That night, the group chat erupted. "Derek, you're actually selling to developers?" Aunt, "How could you even consider this?" Jenna, "Is this real?" My uncle finally sent one message. "Greed reveals character." I stared at it. Greed, coming from the man who tried to buy me out for pennies. I typed once, deleted, typed again, deleted, then sent, "Fair market value isn't greed, coercion is." No one responded. The next morning, my dad came over. He didn't sit. He stood in my living room like he was delivering news from a war zone. "Your uncle's furious," he said. "That's been established," I replied. "He says if you close this deal, he'll contest everything, tie it up in court, make it miserable." I nodded. "That's his right." My dad looked at me carefully. "Are you prepared for that?" The honest answer was no. Court meant stress, money, time. But I'd already been living in stress, and at least this stress had an endpoint. "He won't win," I said. "He doesn't have grounds." My dad sat down finally. "He thinks you're trying to punish him." I almost laughed. "No," I said. "I'm trying to stop being punished." A week later, we scheduled the closing. Word got out. Of course it did. Small lake communities breathe gossip like oxygen. I drove out there the day before everything was finalized. Not to argue, not to gloat, just to look at it one last time as it existed. My uncle's truck was parked in the driveway. I considered turning around. I didn't. When I stepped onto the porch, he came out of the front door like he'd been waiting. His face was red before he even spoke. "You've got some nerve showing up here," he said. "I'm still an owner," I replied. "Not for long," he snapped. We stood there, 10 feet apart, like two men pretending this was about lumber and land instead of ego. "You think this makes you powerful?" he said. "Selling to strangers." "I think it makes me free," I said. He stepped closer. "You're handing this place to people who'll tear it down." "You were tearing it down already," I said. "Just slower." His jaw tightened. "I gave my life to maintaining this house." "You gave yourself control," I corrected. He pointed at me. "You were never around, never contributed. You just want a payout." I held his gaze. "You never asked for contribution. You sent invoices without receipts and expected blind trust." He scoffed. "You think I'm stealing from family?" "I think you're used to not being questioned." That hit. He stepped forward, almost chest to chest now. "You're going to regret this," he said quietly, "when nobody answers your calls, when holidays are silent." For a split second, I felt it. The loneliness. The idea of being cut off. Then I realized something simple. They'd already cut me off. The moment he made love conditional on property. "You made that choice," I said. His voice rose. "You're destroying tradition." I looked past him at the lake. The water didn't care. It kept moving. "Tradition doesn't survive threats," I said. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe he didn't, because I wasn't playing the role he'd assigned me. The next morning, I sat in Laura's office and signed. It wasn't dramatic. No music, no shouting, just pen to paper, irreversible. When the final signature dried, Laura looked at me. "It's done," she said. I felt not triumphant, not even relieved, just steady. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up. "Uncle, you just declared war." "Derek, unbelievable." "Aunt, I hope you're happy." I didn't respond, because this wasn't war. War implies two sides fighting over something shared. This was me refusing to be owned. And now, my uncle had something he'd never had to deal with before. A co-owner who didn't fold. And a developer who didn't care about family theatrics. For the first time in his life, he couldn't intimidate his way out, and that, more than the sale, is what truly enraged him. The fallout wasn't immediate. It was slow, calculated, like a controlled burn. For the first week after closing, my phone buzzed constantly. Cousins asking if I'd reconsider. My aunt sending long paragraphs about legacy and what Grandpa would want. My uncle sending short, sharp messages that were more threat than sentence. "You've destroyed us. You'll regret this when the lawsuits start. You think they won't come for the rest?" I didn't respond. Laura had already explained the next stage to me. The developer formally notified the other owners of intent to negotiate purchase of remaining shares. If they declined, partition was on the table. Not dramatic, legal, and legal doesn't care about group chats. 2 weeks later, my dad called. His voice sounded different this time, not fearful, resigned. "They're trying to buy him out now," he said. "Who?" I asked. "Your uncle," he replied. "He's panicking." I closed my eyes for a moment, because I knew exactly what that meant. He hadn't expected this. He expected me to crumble under social pressure. He expected me to beg to stay in the family. He didn't expect consequences. "They can sell too," I said. "They might have to," my dad replied quietly. That's when the scale shifted. My uncle hadn't just tried to bully me out. He'd risked the entire property on the assumption that I'd obey. And now the lake house wasn't under his control anymore. It was under negotiation. The next call I got wasn't from a cousin. It was from him. His voice was controlled. Too controlled. "What do you want?" he asked. I almost laughed. "I wanted respect," I said. "You offered exile." "You've made your point," he said tightly. "Call your buyer off." "It's not my buyer," I replied. "It's a legal transaction." "You're enjoying this," he accused. I looked around my apartment. No lake view, no dock, no nostalgia, just quiet. "I'm not enjoying anything," I said. "I'm just not being bullied." There was a long silence. Then something new crept into his voice. Fear. You know, if this sells, he said slowly, none of us will ever speak to you again. I didn't flinch. You said that before I signed anything. He inhaled sharply. You're not my nephew anymore. There it was, official, not dead to us in a heated call, a deliberate sentence, and I realized something strange. It didn't hurt the way it should have, because he'd already stripped that role of warmth. You stopped being my uncle the night you tried to extort me, I said. Then I hung up. The final decision from the developer came 3 weeks later. They negotiated directly with my uncle, hard, without emotion, without nostalgia, without fear. Eventually, my uncle did what he'd been trying to force me to do. He sold. The lake house didn't get bulldozed. Not immediately. It was renovated, expanded, marketed differently. The old porch was replaced, the dock redesigned. Grandpa's name was no longer attached to anything. And that was the part that hurt. Not the sale, not the money, the erasure. I drove past it once, months later, didn't stop, just slowed down. The new owners were out on the deck, laughing, kids running across the yard. It didn't look evil, it looked normal, life continuing. And that's when it finally clicked. The lake house wasn't the family, it was a location. What destroyed the family wasn't the sale, it was the ultimatum, it was the threat. It was turning love into leverage. After the dust settled, the silence came. No holiday invitations, no birthday messages, no calls. My aunt unfriended me on everything. Derek blocked me. Jenna sent one quiet message months later. I'm sorry it got so ugly. Then nothing. My dad still talks to me. But it's different. He doesn't mention the lake. We don't revisit the argument. It's like a scar everyone pretends is a birthmark. Sometimes, late at night, I think about Grandpa sitting on that old wooden swing, about how proud he was of that place, about how carefully he divided ownership because he didn't trust one person with too much power. And I realized something that makes me uncomfortable and proud at the same time. I didn't betray his intent. I enforced it. He didn't want control consolidated. He wanted balance. My uncle tried to override that with intimidation. I responded with law. People say I sold the family lake house. That's the story that travels easiest. It's cleaner, simpler, but the truth is uglier. The house was already gone the moment my uncle said, "Sign or you're dead to us." Because when property becomes a threat, it stops being a home. And when family demands obedience in exchange for belonging, it stops being family. I didn't sell my childhood. I sold my exit. And if the price of staying was surrendering my name, my share, and my dignity, then the lake was never worth it. I lost a house, I lost relatives, but I kept something more important. The ability to look at myself and know I wasn't owned. And that's something no ultimatum can take away. I still think about the dock sometimes, the way the water looked at sunset, but I don't miss the threats. I don't miss the ultimatums, and I don't miss being told my worth depended on my signature. I lost relatives. I kept my dignity. That's a trade I'd make again.